When you start a router for the first time, and it's the same for a switch, make sure you've connected a PC to the console port. Visualize the start of the iOS, and start the first configuration of the router. When a router starts, it performs a whole series of tests, known as post. This makes it possible to check the proper functioning of the processor, memory, and its interfaces. If everything is OK, the router will load the iOS image, and once the image is mounted, it will search for the boot configuration file in its NVRAM. If the router can't find it, it will launch a small tool, which will provide a minimal configuration. To ignore this dialog box and manually set up the router, simply answer no to the first question and validate. And after entering no, or if the router finds its startup config directly, then the user mode command prompt will appear. The show version command allows you to check the status of the router. To check the running configuration of the router, i.e. running-config, you must use the show running-config command. One of the main functions of a router is to transfer packages from one network device to another. In order for it to do this, it must configure the interfaces on which it will receive and send the packages. There are two types of physical interfaces for Cisco routers. There are Ethernet interfaces and serial interfaces. A 10 mega Ethernet interface is configured with the Ethernet interface command. In the example, we want to go into the configuration mode of the interface 01. If it's 100 mega, the command will be fast interface. And the serial interfaces, which can support point-to-point links, are configured with the command serial interface, followed by the interface number. In the example, it is the 000 series interface. There is also another type of interface, which is the looping interface, better known as loopback. It's a virtual interface, which means it's not connected to any device. They are very useful because they can never break down unless the router is completely turned off. To set it up, you have to use the loopback interface command. In the example, it is given the identifier 0 and is assigned to the IP in 4 times 1. A mask in 4 times 255. That is, that all bits of the mask are at 1, indicates only one IP network. The IP range therefore includes only one IP, the one in 4 times 1. By default, and unlike a switch, when a router is started for the first time, all of these interfaces are disabled. To activate an interface, you need to use the command no shutdown. And to disable an interface, for example if you need to set up certain things on a segment of the network, you'll have to use the command shutdown directly in the interface's configuration mode. If you need to restart an interface, then simply combine the two commands by making a shut, no shut on the interface in question. A postal address identifies the locations of homes and businesses so that mail can arrive correctly. Well, it's the same with routers. Each interface must have its own IP address to be identifiable on the network and to move IP packages. If no IP address is set up, even if the interface is enabled, the router will not be able to send IP packages on it. Setting up an IP address on an interface is relatively simple. Just use the command IP address, its IP and the subnetwork mask that goes with it. As in this example, for the configuration of a series interface.